So a few things to remember in the go-to-market. So first of all, it's a journey by itself, right? And usually it will take 18 months to complete. And we can actually start to duplicate them in sort of after 3 months that we figure out how to start, we can start the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and so forth. But still, it's going to take us 18 months to complete the journey of going to a country and becoming good enough in the country and figuring out how do we grow in this country and so forth. In general, all the successful companies, consumer-based successful companies, do not buy users. They did at the beginning. They are doing that when they go to a new place. They are investing in initial traction, so they might be buying users, but over time they don't. And as we tried that yesterday, all of us, we started using something because we heard from a friend. So the way to grow is essentially word of mouth. You have to start someplace. So when you start, you buy users, you invest in PR. Look, when we started Waze here in Brazil, then we hired a PR agency to help us at the beginning, to create some traction, to create the first buzz, to create awareness, to establish credibility, right? So sometimes someone will tell you something, and then you go in and search for that, and you will see that, okay, there was an article on that in different places, so maybe it's okay. We thought we're going to stay with the PR agency for 3 months because this is what we needed in order to start in a new place. And we stayed with them 3 years because they did an amazing job and keep on doing coverage and air coverage that helps us, and we kept them for a longer period of time. So at the beginning, it's okay for you to spend money. It's okay for you to spend money on PR, on user acquisition, on anything that you think is necessary. But it's not a sustainable model. You cannot buy your way to become successful. You will need to establish essentially the word of mouth for that. We started that in the whole of Brazil at the same time, right? But essentially, São Paulo is the biggest city, and traffic jams there are even more severe than here, and so it was easier for us to be there. And in particular, look, the good news is that in many places in Latin America, the perception of the problem is bigger than it is in other places, right? So not only that traffic jams are bad, and sometimes public transportation is not a real good alternative, and so the starting point for us was actually very, very good in São Paulo. But it's not that traffic here is a piece of cake, right? It's not easy either. Startups cannot help each other. So if you meet with another startup and you say, okay, let's cooperate, what exactly do you mean? So the other startup, what they really need is users, which you don't have, and what you really want from them is users that they don't have. So how exactly are you going to help each other? It doesn't work. The only thing that you can do with other startups is get introductions, right? So here are the investors that I met, and I like them, and let me do an intro for you. This is it. You cannot rely your growth on cooperation between startups. They simply cannot help each other. You want to base your growth on business development that they can bring you users. And it's possible, not always. So just an example, Movit is very successful here in Brazil. I think there are maybe 20 million users, right? So quite a lot. The leapfrog was through cooperation with Team Brazil and with the municipality of Rio during the World Cup. And so all of a sudden, business development turns out to be working in this model. But in most cases, business development is try and error. You try different things, and some of them are working. Most of them don't. So 95% of the cases, or maybe 90% of the tries that we are doing business development will simply yield close to zero results. Now, the way to start is very simple. You have a dialogue with someone and you say, okay, that sounds like a good idea, and then you say, let's start and figure out the terms later. In most cases, If they can help, they will do that at the very early stage. If they cannot help, or they don't know how to help, it doesn't matter. And if you need to establish a business model for this corporation, then establish something. It doesn't matter. If you'll figure out that this is wrong, you will fix them. You will fix that, or they will fix that, right? So let's say that you say, you know what, you're gonna help us bring users, and then we will pay you revenue share on the money that we are doing, and this is going to be 50% revenue share. If they are significant, they will come back and say, no, 50% is not enough. If they're insignificant, then no one cares, right? If over time, if they start as significant and over time become irrelevant, then you'll come back and say, you know what, 50% doesn't make sense. So you can always renegotiate different deals, but the most important part is that we don't know which one of these business development relationships is going to yield significant results. And so we really want to start. And we'll figure out later what exactly we are doing. Now, this is a very different approach, right? It's not that we're going to have a signed, agreed contract with all the terms over time. We're going to start with something and we basically say, let's start as a trial and see if it works. If it does, then we'll figure out all the terms. So what really is important here is at the beginning, this is one-man show. It's not a team. It's not an organization. It's someone that is going into this country on a regular basis and try to figure out what works marketing-wise, what works business development-wise, what works in terms of the product, and getting all the feedback back so we can fix things. The idea is the same as it is with product market fit. We would like to do iteration after iteration. So we decide that we want to try different things in marketing. Keep on trying them. Keep on trying different things, a lot of things. So think of 50 different trials that you would like to do, right? So someone would say, you know, maybe if we will stand with a sign in the shopping center, that will help. Okay, then go and try that. Maybe we will use Facebook advertisement to bring users. Okay, let's try that. Maybe we will find groups of users that actually care about what we are doing, so let's find them online and reach out to them and try to involve that. Let's try that. Any idea is a good idea. It's worth trying it. Because we don't know which one is going to work. And what we are really doing here in this phase, it's not just that we are trying stuff. We are writing the cookbook. We are writing how to go to the next country. We are writing the instructions of what to do and what not to do for the next market. And in order to do that, we would like to try many things so the next market is easier for us to do. Business development, again, there is huge promise in that, and a lot of people are really running into that because of the promise. The reality is that 90% of these are not going to yield any results. I'll give you an example. So in the last round of funding for Waze, there were two major ventures that invested: Horizons from Hong Kong and Kleiner Perkins. Now, Horizons is actually a Li Ka-shing Foundation, and they have a lot of businesses in China and worldwide, including Hutchison, which is a mobile operator. And so one of the things that we said, we told them, look, you have mobile operator, tell them to preload Waze, and we will see the results, right? And so sure enough, they gave us Tre, the Italian mobile operator that is part of the Hutchison group, and they said, okay, go and have a dialogue with them. And they said, we cannot do pre-install, but we can do push notification to all of our install base, and this is going to be significant. And they did. And we had 300,000 users as a result of that. So pretty significant, right? Nice number. And then I said, you know what, it's working. Let's do it again, right? So 2 months later, I came to them and I said, let's do it again. And they said, we usually don't do that again. And I said, okay, do you want me to speak with your parent company? And then we will agree to do that again. And eventually they agreed to do that again. And it brought us 30,000 users. So the first time was really impressive. The second time was kind of disappointing, right? So we expected much more the second time. We already know how to do that. We should be doing that better, and the results was dramatically lesser. And that was one of the best business development relationship that we actually had, because most of them yields very little. And we had dialogues with mobile operators, we had dialogues with car companies, with automotive clubs, right? And with many that eventually yield very little results. And this is one thing that we need to remember. At the end of the day, if we are a consumer product, word of mouth is the one that is going to bring us the numbers. So a journey by itself, fail fast. I think this is my t-shirt today, right? So make your mistakes fast. And the idea is that we tell ourselves, we don't know, we're going to try different things, and if we fail, it's good because we disqualify this approach and we move forward to try the next approach. We don't get stuck. We keep on moving all the time, because if we get stuck, and then we are not moving fast enough. And in many cases, what I've seen is that people telling themselves, okay, it has to work, right? And so we think about it and we start to imagine that this is going to work, and it doesn't work. And you keep on trying the same thing, even though that it doesn't work. Move forward. Forget about it. It doesn't work. That's it. That's the only thing that we care about. We move forward to try the next thing, because otherwise we get stuck and we don't move fast enough. And so a lot of cases, the business development it turns out to be bad dreams, right? So yeah, we're going to speak with these insurance companies and they're definitely going to do that for us. Maybe they don't even know how to do that. We want them to bring users. They don't necessarily know how to bring users. So switching subjects, this is maybe the most important part. Number one, it applies to all the businesses, not just startups, right? What kind of working place we would like to have? And for a second, I would say, imagine the best working place that you can dream of. Imagine, seek up in your experience, what was the best working place you ever had so far? And try to define that, why it was such a great place. And make sure that the next one is such. Because otherwise we're going to be in a working place that we don't like. And we are there every day. And for a long period of time. Now, if this is a startup, you're there not just every day, you're there every night as well, right? So you're there long, long hours every day. And if you don't love that, if you don't like the place, you build something totally wrong. So I want you to think about, what does it mean for you, the best working place you ever had? Now, a lot of cases, it's not about being successful or not. Obviously, it has an influence on that. It's about who do we work with. It's about what are the values that we stand for. It's about who we are, rather than, and how do we do business, rather than if we are successful or not, or what is our mission or not. So the DNA of the company essentially defines every day, right? So this is what we're going to see every day. And we start, when we start, we define that on day one. So during this period of time that we are getting in love with our own idea and we're starting to think of many things, I want you to think of what kind of company you would like to have. What is the DNA of the company that we have? What are the values? What kind of people are going to bring on board? You know, you can basically say, so here are all the people in the world, right? And we have really smart people here and stupid people here, right? Or we have very capable people here and not capable here. And obviously we would like those people on board, right? We don't like those. But here's a different scale. Nice people here and assholes here. Right? We don't want assholes in our company. We want nice people. We want to work with people that we would like to work with. Now, these are different scales, right? Someone can be really smart and really asshole at the same time, right? There is no correlation between them. Different things, completely different things. Now, this is very important that we basically say we actually would like to work with people that we would like to work, that we can have good communication with them, that they acknowledge and recognize what we are doing, and we acknowledge and recognize what they are doing. And that we really would like to spend the rest of our working days with them and not other people. Now, this is critical. This is the types of people that we would like to do. What is the focus of the company? What is more important, right? So essentially, a lot of people would say, okay, customers is the most important things. And then when you look at the behavior, you actually realize that this is not exactly the case, right? So it's not about just saying, it's about doing what we believe is the most important thing. And by the way, in general, I would say the people that we are working with are the most important thing. They will take care of the customers, they will take care of everything else. If we don't take care of them, then they're not going to take care of the customers. So really think about the best working place you ever had and define that to yourself. Some examples, right? Now, they are not necessarily the right examples, right? So in many cases, you would find that the top sales guy turns out to be a jerk. And in many cases, it might be the case, right? So do you prefer the performance and the sales that this person brings, or the fact that no one really wants to work with this guy? Which one is more important? Which one is more important, by the way? What I'm saying is that it's up to us to decide, right? So someone will say, for me, more important is the performance. I'm going to bring this jerk, and I'm going to actually make sure that he doesn't interfere with the rest of the organization. He's going to do his, magical performers away from the rest of the company, so no one cares. But I need the performance. And someone else will say, you know what? I'm not going to agree on that. I'm going to bring someone that is performing a little bit lesser, but is going to be a person that people would like to stay with. So essentially, some priorities do not change, right? So giving you an example, privacy, waze. We built ways basically saying we are on the side of the drivers. We are not on the sides of the authorities, right? So even if the police would ask us where you have been last night, we don't know. Or give us all the numbers that exceeded the speed limit, we don't know, and we cannot even do that. We build the system in such a way that we cannot even do that because we choose a side on day one. We decided that this is what we're going to do. And at the same time, this is what we are not going to do. Now, you do realize that at the end of the day, not just Waze, today nearly all the companies in this space are actually, they know exactly where you are, or they know exactly where is your smartphone all the time, right? So possibly they might be tracking you down and might be giving you offers based on that. Okay, that's okay. Or might be selling your information to someone else. That's not okay, right? Giving you an example, so today the flashlight in the phone is a built-in application. But a few years ago, you needed to download a flashlight application, right? What exactly is the business model of this free flashlight application? They track you down and they sell the data. That's what they do. They use the GPS in order to find out where you are all the time. And they sell the data to someone else. Not exactly what you thought about it, right? And so what kind of company we are, we decide on day one, and we don't change that. And we tell people when we bring them on board, we tell them, look, this is the set of values that we believe in. And if you don't believe in, that's fine. You don't belong here. And in fact, if we will find out that you don't act as someone that is believing in that, we will say goodbye and you'll walk away. Because we really try to build something that every day that we look at it, we say to ourselves, this is exactly how I bring that. Now, the people, this is probably the hardest decisions that we will need to make, and the most important one. Now, hiring is easy. Firing is hard. In particular, if we already agree that we're going to build this place with nice people, right? So being nice also means that I don't really want to fire people. But I do need to fire people. It's the decision that I need to make. It's a very hard decision. But it starts with who and when do we hire people, and what kind of people we would like to hire, and what kind of people we don't like to hire. And how do we do that? Because we established a position yesterday that it takes us seconds to establish the first impression, right? So you interview someone, and very fast you tell yourself, I like this guy, right? And then in the next few minutes you solidify your point of view, and the rest of the interview you try to explain to yourself why you are right in your underlying assumption that this is a fit. And if this is the case, then maybe we shouldn't judge, or we shouldn't rely on our ability to interview people as the best approach to hire people. Now, in fact, we shouldn't. There are much better choices than that. For example, interviewing peers of that person, or interviews people that worked with this person before, is actually more effective than interviewing the person himself. To a certain extent, I would say, if I'm an investor and you're the CEO, show me the management team, and I would know how strong of a CEO you are. Right? If you have a very powerful management team, that means that you're a very powerful CEO. If you don't have a strong team, then that means there are two options here. Number one, you don't want to bring strong people into the organization, which means that you are probably afraid of something, or I don't know. But if you don't bring strong people into the organization, that sucks. Number two, you brought some strong people into the organization and they left. That sucks also. So to a certain extent, I would say, if you have strong management team, that shows as it only happens if you're a very, very strong leader. And this is very, very important, right? You bring strong management team. So you get to the level that you tell yourself, what exactly am I doing here? The team is doing all the work without me? That's excellent. That means that you have built the right team. We mentioned that yesterday the number one reason for failures is not that the team is not right, is that the CEO did not fix the fact that the team is not right. And sometimes we tend to believe, okay, we know it's not right, but it will improve over time, and it doesn't. Most of the things that were there at the beginning will remain pretty much the same. If we don't deal with the hard issues at the beginning, they will remain hard. They are not going to go away. Founders team, a lot of ego management. So now this is really hard, right? Because it's always us and our ego at the same time. And in many of the teams that I've seen, many of the founders team, so a few facts. One is most of the teams at the end of the journey will not survive as a team. In half of my startups, at least one team member left within the first 2-3 years, sometimes within the first two months. Right? And the stats in other companies are even higher than that. So you start 3 friends and you tell yourself, this is the powerful team, this is amazing team, and we are friends and we know how to work together. And in 3 years time frame, one of you is going to be out. That's the stats. And so what you really need is, when you're starting the journey, you need to realize that, number one, this is the statistics. So we might be different, right? So in ways it was different. We started 3 founders, and then we brought Noam as a CEO, and we remained all 4 of us until the day of the acquisition. So it's possible to do different things. But in general, in most of the startups, 3 team members that start, after 3 years, not all of them will stay. So 2 will stay in average. Sometimes it's even worse than that, right? So I've seen teams that one left, and then another left, and then another came on, and another one left, and so forth. So not easy. So if we understand that this is likely to happen, what we don't know is if we are going to be the one to leave, or we are going to be the one to stay. And therefore, we need to build sort of a founder's agreement that deals with the future when there are agreements, right? So today we all believe that we are all going to stay, but we realize that it's possible that someone would like to leave, or we would like someone to leave, and that someone might be me or might be someone else. Now, we cannot build something that we cannot break, because otherwise what it means is that the entire startup, the entire organization will fail, right? If we cannot fix things, then we will fail. So, yeah, and to a certain extent, I would say, my dad once told me that if you don't create value, then you start to create damage. The second that it happens, you want to split. You don't want anyone to create damage. Now, they might be creating damage because essentially we didn't agree on the ego management on the issues on day one. They might be creating damage because the organization moved forward and the challenges that we have today are different and they're not capable of doing that. Now, think about it for a second. So I'm a founder and I'm responsible for marketing, right? So, and then at the beginning, I'm doing very, very good job. And after a year, we are saying, okay, now we need to step up, do something different. I'm not capable of doing that. And I go home and I feel useless. I feel that they're bringing someone else to do my job, right? So my ego is being hurt. And what I would like to show them is that I actually capable, right? I can do that. And one of the ways to do that is actually preventing from the new guy of doing their job. Now, I'm not saying that this is how we really think. This is how we really behave as human beings. If we do not, capture our ego and controlling our ego, this is likely to happen. This happens a lot of times. Now, there are some rare cases, right? But in general, I would say, if you're being demoted for not being good enough in your position, in your ability to perform what is needed, it's very hard for us to actually accept that. And in most cases, even if we want to comply with that and we want to support that and we understand that this is for the sake and the success of the company, on a personal level, very hard for us to digest that, very hard to swallow. So, and part of it is that at the beginning, if you have a founding team that involve one with a business experience and two engineers, this is exactly what we need here, right? So you look here and you say, okay, the business experience is this, and the engineers are here, and we have perfect team, right? But what if we are trying to build something and there are people that knows or understand marketing, or they think of themselves, okay, I would like one of the founders say, I would like to do business development. And that one say, I would like to do marketing, right? And the third one say, I'm going to be the CEO. What exactly the marketing and the business development are going to do on day one? There is nothing for them to do. So you cannot create value. Then what do? Essentially create damage, even if you don't want that. You are defocusing the company by the fact of the stuff that you want to do. So the best team, or the best people that you really need are the people that you need right now. People that you will need in the future, bring them on the future. Some titles, if I would see a team of founders that one of them will say, I'm the CEO, and the other one will say, I'm the COO, and the third one will say, I'm the president, they haven't solved their ego management issues. Why do we need a president for 3-people company? What exactly the president is doing? What exactly is the COO doing? Basically saying the CEO is incapable of running the show? This is ego management titles, right? If you run into that, we have a problem. People are being managed by their ego rather than by the need of being successful. Founders agreement, the most important part is that you can break. You can basically say, look, it doesn't work, let's fix that. Someone needs to leave, right? And you need to build that on day one, because if you don't define how you break, then you wouldn't be able to break, and the result is that the company will break. And the day that you start this journey, the journey is becoming more important than you. The mission and the problem you're trying to solve, the value you're trying to create is becoming more important than a single person. So sometimes, in particular, when you start to bring other investors, what you really want to do is to have the support of the founders, right? And so you basically establish clauses like, in order to fire a founder, we need also, whatever the board decides, I don't care, we also need the majority of the rest of the founders. Because if we don't have that, then all of a sudden the board of investors don't like the CEO and they would like to fire the CEO. And we actually think that, or we might think that the CEO is doing an amazing job. And because of that, they might not like him, right? So let's make sure that they do not have the superpower of firing the CEO. They might have this, they need to win the support of the rest of the founders in order to do that. Half of the startups, the team breaks. Now this is pretty consistent. It doesn't matter where. Half of the startups will have, during the first couple of years, either mismatch or ego management issue or something that one of the founders would leave, sometimes even more. Now, when we move forward out of the founders team, so maybe the founders team is one person, right? Then we don't have an issue with ego management, hopefully. Again, if you do, then we will need a shrink here. But we need to hire people. So how do we hire people? Whom do we hire? How do we know that this is the right time to hire? So you hire someone when you can actually define what exactly they're going to do in the next 90 days. If you don't know, it's too early. It's simply too early. And the result is that you're going to bring someone on board. You don't know what they are going to do. In reality, they don't know what they are going to do because you haven't told them what exactly they are going to do. They will start to do things that are not needed, which could be either defocus or they will feel that they are not valuable enough and they would leave. If you know what they are going to do in the next 3 months. So this guy here, right? This guy in the next 3 months is going to build the iPhone version, right? And this guy, the second one, is going to build the server side that collects all the data from the app and store that in the database, right? And so you can define what they are going to do in the next 90 days. And then it's the right time to hire them. If you can say what they are going to do in the next 90 days, it's okay. If you're going to tell them, I don't know exactly, you're going to be an evangelist and figure out what to do, they don't know what to do. And they will feel not valuable. And when people don't find their position, they're either creating damage or they would leave because they don't find their place. In most cases, you don't need to tell them what to do. You need to tell them what we are trying to achieve, right? So really, we need to build a version, right? Okay, this is it. It's enough for them to understand. If it's not enough for them to understand, they're not the right people. You want to bring people that they understand the objectives and they can build their own plan based on the objectives, the specific plans that they're going to execute, and then execute that plan. If you need to build a plan for them, they are not good enough at the beginning. Maybe later on, when you have a manager that can build the plans for the people, it's okay. At the early phase, you want to bring someone that you explain to them what is it that you are trying to achieve, and they can figure out the plan for that. The other part, now when the organization is really small, then you don't see that. But when the organization is becoming end of the first year and there are 10 people in the organization, there are two things that you really want to consider. One is that the people that you bring on board, they can do the job, right? Whatever the job is, right? They are capable of performing what is needed from them. The other one is that you want the entire organization to actually like them. If you bring people that other people in the organization don't like, maybe the new guy is performing well, but the impact on the rest of the organization is actually creating more damage than help. So the best people that we can hire are people that we have worked with before. We know what they're like, and we know what they're like at work, right? So we can figure out, okay, we know if they're performing good or not, and we know if they're nice people to work with or not. These are the best. If we don't have those, then we would be looking for the second one, someone that I trust, that worked with them before and will say, you should hire these people. And you should hire, and then you would ask them why, and they will tell you why you should hire them. And so pretty recently, someone reached out to me. I was traveling someplace, and he reached out to me on the email and say, look, I'm looking at this guy to hire, and I know that you've worked with him before. What do you think of this guy, and are you available to meet and discuss? And I said, look, I'm traveling. I don't really have the time. But in one word, take the guy. And then he emailed me back and he said, okay, can I have that in 2 words? And I said, yeah, take the guy fast. And so when you know someone that is really good performer, right, an ace performer, a nice person to work with, you want this person on board. Now, if it doesn't fit into your own organization, you would gladly recommend them to anyone because you know what they're worth. And so now if you don't have that close, then find out someone else in the organization that has worked with someone before, and they can do that, right? So what you're really looking for is the reference. How is this person to work with in terms of the ability to perform the job, in terms of the ability to, or not ability, in terms of the of really working with this person. So a lot of times when we are looking in now, if we don't have all those and we need to go into the next phase, then we're looking at the CV, the first impression. By the way, how is Google hiring? Do you know? Anyone here is working at Google? So we think that okay, I'm the manager of the team, right? And I would be the first one to interview the candidate for joining the team. And after I am satisfied with this, maybe there will be other interviews. Google, the team leader, do not interview, just the peers. So just the rest of the team are interviewing the candidate, and they would say if they want to work with this guy or not. So it's not even the responsibility or the decision of the team leader. The team leader needs to have a new hire, and the rest of the team wants to have a new hire. Very different. So interviewing the candidate, we already agreed that this is not that powerful. By the way, you can learn how to interview more effectively, and getting rid of some of the problems of the first impressions. But in general, it's not a good enough method. So interview is one approach. LinkedIn endorsement. This is the stupidest thing that I ever heard. Sometimes I get an email that says, okay, a guy that I don't know just endorsed one of my capabilities that I didn't even know that I have. That's amazing, right? In general, I say, you know what? I'm not going to speak with this guy ever in my life because he is either stupid or something else, right? He doesn't know me. How can you endorse me on something that you don't even know, right? So obviously not a good approach to reference that. The best thing is to speak with the references of the candidate. So you find out people that used to work with this person before, and you speak with them. You interview them rather than interviewing the candidate. And then the dialogue with the candidate would be, if the references were good, you met the candidate for the first day, and you tell them, look, I spoke with other people that you've worked with, or they recommended you. I'm ready to hire you. We don't need to do anything else. So some of the examples of good people to hire, those that we don't need to tell them what to do, we need to tell them what we are trying to achieve. Those that other people think that they are great. People that we don't want in the organization. We don't want drama queen. We don't want victims. At the end of the day, these people create more damage than help, even if they are performing very well. A victim will be the person that is blaming everyone around them, right? So everyone else feel like they are doing something wrong. And we don't want victims. I mentioned that, and people don't like to work with them, right? We might not know that at the beginning, But we would know that over time. If we have someone in the organization that people don't like to work with them, we should fire this person. And we should know, and we should fire them. Some organizational health metrics that we would like to find out or build over time, and again, it's not on the first day. It's not when we are 3-people organization. This is very hard to do when you're 3-people organization. But when you're starting to be 30, 40, 50 people organization, you actually would like to build some of those. So figure out the attrition in your industry. So how many people are leaving organizations like yours every year? Is that 10%? Is that 25% like it is in the Silicon Valley? But these days it's actually more than 30 or 40%? Or is that 3 or 4%? And you want less people to leave than the industry, and you want to improve on that consistently. So starting point, you don't know the industry average. Moving forward, you want to improve on that. You don't want people to leave. If people leaving more than the average, that means that the leadership suck. And then you need to change leadership. It might be you by yourself. It might be different team leaders or different VPs or different members of the management team that people don't like, and they're leaving because of that. At the end of the day, so how many people here switch jobs in their lifetime? Number one reason to switch job is you don't trust the direct supervisor. Number one. Sometimes, obviously, if someone will offer you double the salary, then you would go, right? That's easy. But in most cases, people decide to leave before there is even an offer. And they decide to leave because they don't trust the leadership. That's number one reason for people to leave. It doesn't matter what they're saying. They would say, it's not challenging enough or whatever it is. The reality is that they don't trust the leadership. And usually that's the direct supervisor that they don't trust. So if we have within the organization a lot of people living in one department, that means they don't trust the leader there. What we really should do, replace the leader. So here's something, different view for an organization, right? So amazing people, excellent people, good employees, mediocres, and people that shouldn't be there, right? And they shouldn't be there maybe because they're stupid, maybe because they're incapable of performing the job, and maybe they're simply jerks, simply not nice people, right? So number one, we have very hard time to decide where exactly is our organization, right? So in average, this is all the organizations in the world, right? And if I would ask people, okay, so where is your team? Then people will tell me my team is here, right? And then I would ask other team members or other leaders of different teams within the organization. They would say, okay, my team is here. And everyone would believe that their team is here. And then I would ask them, okay, in general, where is the entire organization? They would say, okay, they are in the middle. So all the teams are here, and we are still in the middle. This is hard to explain, right? So we have harder time to decide or to tell ourselves really where exactly we are. And therefore, we build tools to figure that out. So here is the biggest challenge. Let's say that we agree that we are an average organization and we want to improve. So this is what we have in our organization, right? We have some amazing people and some excellent and some good employees and some mediocres and some people that shouldn't be there. Let me ask you that. I want to improve. What is the fastest way to improve? To bring more of those or to get rid of those? Any thoughts? Get rid of them. Why? Exactly. So bringing awesome people is hard. But the impact is not going to be as significant as if we are going to fire the people that shouldn't be there. Because when we do that, so keeping the good people is very important. Much more important is firing the people that shouldn't be there because of the impact on the rest of the organization. And we show the rest of the organization that we listen to them, that we know, and that we are doing something about it. If we just bring more people, even if they're awesome, we basically acknowledge to all the people in the organization, we haven't seen you. We know or we don't know that there is a problem. And when we fire the people that shouldn't be there, the impact is that we encourage everyone, that we recognize the issues, that we deal with the issues, and that we actually create de facto, we are moving the average, but we will be moving the average the same way if we are bringing more awesome people or getting rid of the people that shouldn't be there. But we acknowledge the rest of the people and we harness them to bring even better results and better organization. So how do we know? How do we know who shouldn't be there? We ask the people. We build a sociometric exam and we run that within the organization, and we really ask few very simple questions. Let's say that we are building a new team and you're selected to be part of the team. Who is the person that you really would like to be with you on that team? And who is the person that if they are on the team, you're not coming? And then you get the two ends, right? And if there are some people that a lot of people say, we would like to work with this person, and you haven't recognized that this is an amazing person up until now, this is the time to give them a bonus, to recognize that, probably publicly. So say this is a person is amazing, and we recognize that, and a lot of people actually need that. And maybe giving them more options, right? So we will need a little bit more options than we acknowledge, because there are people that we would like to keep there. Now, if there is person or people that a lot of people say we don't like these people, we don't want these people to work with, we should get rid of that people. If they are doing an amazing job, then we should separate them from the rest of the team and make sure that they are someplace that no one knows. Maybe as a consultant, maybe as an independent consultant doing something completely different. But in general, get rid of those people. This is how we improve organizations. Otherwise, we are not improving the organization. If we are not improving the organization will die, right? So then this is the default structure of all the organizations in the world, right? If we will go into any organization today with enough people, then there are some amazing, some excellent, and there are also some people that shouldn't be there. That's the status quo. That's the current state of any organization. Now, we mentioned that yesterday. If we don't get rid of those, then these people will start to leave because they don't want to be here. When they start to leave, then instead of improving the organization towards here, we are actually having a deteriorated organization that is moving towards here. By the way, the difference between awesome organization and mediocre organization is that the average, instead of being here, is being here. Just a little bit. But this little bit is pretty significant. So the sociometric, the two key questions: who would you like to take with you to the next team, and who you wouldn't go if this person is going to lead this new team? You can do more, right? You can start asking about overall leadership of the organization, and if a lot of people think that one of the VP is not good, then you should start asking yourself the real questions why they're not good. Who is here a CEO of their organization? Okay, who wants to be a CEO of an organization? Now, usually when I ask questions and I want, then I raise my hand, but I don't want to. This is important, right? Because some people would like to be a CEO for the title, that will be ego management. Some people would like to be the CEO so they can actually have the full responsibility and the ability to make the decision. And a lot of people don't want to be the CEO, but they are kind of taking that position because they can make the hard decisions, because they can lead, and they don't necessarily want that position. Now, the CEO is very challenging because at the end of the day, the CEO is not just responsible for all the decisions. The CEO is going to be there by herself.